in place without removing it. If you remember, the idea is that there would be potential for release if they disturb it. So what they want to do is further study on leaving it in place and stabilizing it with an injection of materials, that sort of thing. They also want to look further at the different alternatives that, including removal, and the problems that will result from that. So that's what this study is. It's a pretty substantial cost, but I think it's what we're trying to do is provide enough information to the regulatory agencies so that we can justify our case for alternative closure measures.
Question for you. These are the ponds from Sims 1 and 2, right? We're talking about, not the Sims 3 pond. Are we talking about the Sims 3 ponds?
Really all of them, all right? Because what actually happened with the Unit 3 is we've essentially closed that pond with what we think is consistent, but there is ash materials under the pond from what we pointed out. So part of this, if we do stabilize things in place, part of the combustion coal residuals that, as I understand it, would be those materials that are left under from Unit 1 and 2 under the Unit 3 pond. So they really want to study this idea of in situ stabilization and make a recommendation on that to you. This study would enable that. They also want to study further the potential for how really evaluate their claim, and they've kind of already made this claim, that if you disturb it, you have a risk of release. They want to further study how great that risk is.
And BLP is being held responsible because the ash that is under the clay originally came from the BLP? Is that why?
Well, I can't say all of the ash on the site is from the BLP, but there may be some ash there that was in the dump, or that people brought to the dump at some point in time, ash from their furnaces or whatever else. I don't know that, but we're assuming that most of the ash on the site, the quote CCR material, regulated CCR material, is from Units 1 and 2. All of the ash from Unit 3 has now been removed from the site. So the only ash that we're dealing with is the ash that was deposited. Again, I can make it very clear. The only ash that we're regulated is from the ash that's on the site from Sims 1 and 2 from the early 1960s till the 1980s, when we started using the now clean Unit 3 ponds. Am I correct in what I'm saying there, Eric? If you want to add anything to that answer.
No, that's decent, Dave. That's pretty spot on. I would say the one thing that when we said that Golder claimed that disturbance would create a downstream contamination, they're basing that off of data that they collected when we were doing the pilings for the new substation. We have monitoring wells just downstream of that. So they're basing it off of results that we saw when we were doing that work.
Eric, am I correct in suggesting that this study, though, would further analyze those potential problems?
Can you guys hear me now? For a second there, it wasn't allowing me to unmute.
Yes.
Yes, that is their intent, is to try to stabilize this material and minimize the groundwater that's leaching through both the ash and the former trash dump, to try to kill two birds with one stone.
Does that answer your question, John? I don't want to belabor the issue. Okay. Thanks, Eric.
Yep.
Staff's recommending these 3 purchase orders be approved.
Any roll call?
Move to
Oh,
approve.
I'll second it.
Director Crum,
Yes.
Director Keefe,
Yes.
Director Nasser,
Yes.
Director Witherell,
Yes.
Chairperson Smant,
Yes.
We're going to accept a public comment that came in a little bit late.
Go ahead, Mayor.
Hi. Yeah, I was trying to raise my hand and I used the wrong feature, so sorry about that. And thank you for letting me interrupt your agenda here. My comment would have been, I wanted to ask the BLP to postpone any action on the sale of the diesel plant at this time. As you know, council met on the 7th of December in work session, decided that we needed additional public feedback before we approve or deny a sale of the site. And we initiated a public process to gain some feedback to help inform our decisions. Action by PLP at this time is likely to stall or invalidate any public process, which council needs to complete. It may be more difficult to get the requisite votes for approval of council if we have lingering doubts about the public feedback. I think it would be wise for BLP to exercise some patience and appreciate any consideration thereon, and put this action off for now and let council get the feedback that we feel that we need. So thank you for hearing me.
Thanks, Bob.
And by the way, Bob Manazza, 945 Washington Avenue, Grand Haven.
Thank you again.
Bob, we've had a discussion on this, and just as a follow-up question, how long does the city council want us to postpone action on this?
Not sure exactly when we're going to have our feedback. We're sending out flyers in January in water bills. So as that comes in, we'll have a better idea if we're going to get response, how much response, the quality of the response. So I don't know exactly at this point in time.
I guess I hate to use public comment for this, but we are going to do something here. I mean, we're going to postpone action. I think that's pretty clear. But I guess the board, the problem that we've run into is I believe it's only one proposal, but there may be others as well. But the proposals are timed, and the capstone proposal in particular is 120 days from September 30th when it was issued. So that expires on January 28th. So what we would like to do is go back to them and request extensions, and to all of the parties, but we would also like to make those requests for some period of time. And my understanding was originally it's at least somebody suggested February 1st. And what we were going to propose is an extension through February 15th. Is that reasonable? Is that acceptable? Is that something that you would agree with, be supportive of?
That sounds like a reasonable time frame to me. I think by then we'll know what kind of results we're getting from our public outreach. And I agree, it can't linger forever. It needs to come to a decision at some point in time. But you're really talking about council feeling that we have done all our due diligence reaching out to the public. And we're going to have to be involved in this decision.
Okay, thanks, Bob.
Thank you.
Okay, we're on to 5B, other board action and discussion items. The first two items are actually a continuation of discussion that we've had over the last several months. Larry, I think you've missed it. I just catch you back up again. Both the board and council have now approved of separating our defined benefit plans. If you remember a few years ago, we separated the groups within the same plan. Now we're actually talking about separating the plans entirely, all right? So that has been approved. This action is the next step in that process to approve a resolution adopting the Municipal Employees Retirement Trust System Defined Benefit Plan. And this is just a approval of a particular document that's required for us to reestablish the closed BLP defined benefit plan in our name. All right. So that's the action that you, or the proposal that you have before you. It's just a one-pager. Looks like this. And we're asking for your approval on that document.
So moved. Second.
Renee?
Director Crum? Don't make me laugh.
Yes.
Director Keefe?
Yes.
Director Nasser?
Yes.
Director Witherell?
Yes.
Chairperson Smant?
Yes.
There's several other things that we have to do over the next meeting, probably the next meeting. There's a transfer document that needs to be signed as well. So you might see additional follow-up activities, but it's all consistent with the direction that we're going in separating those two plans entirely. And Larry, since you weren't at the meeting, essentially we're just forming the exact, it's all the documents are exactly the same. All of the plan is exactly the same. We haven't changed anything. It's closed. No new employees are being put in. It's just in the BLP's name, separate from the rest of the city, in lieu of all of the other city employees will be in their own plan, and the BLP employees will be in their own plan. All right, does that make sense? The second item that we talked about when we started this discussion was the actuarial assumptions last year. Really, the changes that they made put us back again. We were making real progress in reducing our unfunded liabilities. And we were, I think when we started, we were down around $3.5, $4 million of unfunded liability a couple years ago. The changes in the actuarial assumptions, life expectancy, returns on investment, all these things that they use in the actuarial study changed last December. And we had to report those changes in our financial report on June 30th. All right. So we talked about that when the auditors were in here. And essentially we went back up to $7.5 million of unfunded liability. Now what that means is essentially is we just, whether we move the money over to MERS or not, we have now become obligated for $3.5 million more of unfunded liability. So the thought is do we as a board want to get back on track with where we were and we wanted to be 3 years ago? And to do that, we would need to make approximately a $4 million transfer out of cash into the defined to reduce that liability. It is staff's recommendation to make that transfer before the end of the year so we can have those changes reflective in the December 31st, 2020 actuarial study will be done, and that will be reflected in our June 30th new financial report that comes out. All right. If we do it after the 1st of January, then it won't be reflected in the December 31st actuarial report, and it won't be reflected in our, I guess we could make some adjustments to make it reflective in our June 30th, but we typically take the June 30th numbers out of our December 31st past years report. So if, and it's our recommendation that we do transfer $4 million into that to reduce that liability. And in essence, our thought process is whether you do it or not, it is reducing your cash. When they made the actuarial changes, they did basically lay claim to that cash that we have on the, so when that we have on our balance sheet. So when we go to the rating agencies, they're just going to assume that $4 million that we don't put in is the plan's first before the bondholder. So we might as well make the transaction and show that we're dedicating those funds for that purpose and get back on track. If you remember, our track is to try to get to 100% funding by 10 years from 3 years ago. So this will put us back on track so that we can make our normal annual deposits and be on track again to get to 100% funding in the 7 to 10 year time frame. Does that make sense? Staff's recommendation is to approve a motion to transfer $4 million to the defined benefit plan.
So moved. Support?
I'll support it. I have a question for Dave.
Sure.
So our liability actually went up $3.5 million with a new evaluation? And is
Last
that-
year.
Yeah, and
Yes.
is that what we can expect on an annual basis?
No, so what, maybe I need to explain, we had this discussion, but it's a good one to have, so everyone's under the understanding. What happens every so often is the actuarials look at the assumptions that they have in their report. And, age, how long people live, what types of wage increases they're getting, all these things, they have all these factors that go into these actuarial studies. The primary thing that's changing is the plans assumed an investment return over the next 30 years in their calculations, all right? Those assumed returns were higher over the last 10 years. The assumptions were higher than actual performance, all right? So the plan administrators knew this, all right? They knew that they were underestimating their returns because what they do is they look at them every year, right? I mean, they see it and they can look at the last 10 years and they can look at the last 15 years and the last 20 years. So over the last several years, they knew that these returns and their projected returns going forward were being assumed higher than what they're actually getting, all right? So in last year's, they actually did it twice. They did it about 5 years ago, and then they did it again last year. So they adjusted these expected returns downward in their calculations, all right? Which put them more in line with what was actually happening, all right? So are they going to do it again? Well, I think they're actually pretty close to the returns that they've gotten in the last 10 years. So their assumptions are fairly consistent now with the returns that they're getting. Now, the question is are the returns going to go up or are their actual returns going to go down, forcing future changes in those actuarial assumptions? Your guess is good as mine, John. I mean, so that's what we're dealing with. I think their feeling is that these assumptions are now closer to reality, and that we should be closer to what we actually need to put in. The problem with our particular plan is we aren't putting anybody in this plan, all right? And there's no one else going into the plan. We're actually just going to fund retirees that are any new employees that we have go in our defined contribution plan. So our investments in the plan at this point in time are just calculated, And it's a dollar amount. It's not like a percent of payroll anymore. It's just a flat dollar amount. So if they change the assumptions, what they're going to do is they're going to start just sending us a higher bill. All right? Because we're approaching, quote, end of life faster than other plans are, because our plan is closed. So I think the idea is it's a closed plan. Let's get it funded. That doesn't, once we get to 100%, it doesn't mean that we don't have an obligation, and it could still be a higher obligation, but if we at least don't stay current with what they're doing, we're going to get to a point where, I think it's easier to take this in bites than it is to take it in one lump sum, so I think keeping current, keeping on track, and then it puts us in a better position that if they do change their assumptions again, we don't have to come up with a big, huge change. And the changes shouldn't be that much as they were, in the last few times, because I think they're much closer. Does that make sense? Yeah.
Just a comment. The federal government is just released, or is in the process of releasing actuarially new lifespan tables, and they're being adjusted possibly about 2.5 years, which may or may not affect these kinds of programs. I don't know, but they won't become effective until 2022.
Yeah, I think those the Social Security numbers?
They will impact.
Yeah, so
Social Security.
those are the actuarial assumptions that are used in the Social Security system.
Yeah,
I'm quite sure that the actuarial people at Mears have their own.
they don't use them.
They may or may not. I have no idea.
Oh, okay.
But I'm pretty sure that they've already made probably adjustments, just like life insurance companies, and everybody else. They all have their own actuarial. I mean, that's what our actuarials do, is they make those assumptions, and as life expectancies change, they make changes to the assumptions that they use in our plan. And I
live
think,
longer, you're going to pay longer.
obviously, that's some of the changes, but the bigger change this last time around was not people living a little bit longer.
Yeah,
It was the underestimating of the returns.
Returns, right.
Yeah, they did change that. Yeah.
Roll call, please.
Director Crum,
Yes.
Director Kieft,
Yeah.
Director Nasser,
Yes,
Director Witherell,
Yes.
Chairperson Smant,
Yes.
Okay, we're on to item 5B3. My understanding here is this is the resolution to approve of a transaction with a proposal, or work with a proposal that we received earlier regarding the diesel plant. My understanding is that we would like to table this motion to give the council more time in their review of this action, which, for those that may be listening in the public, this action needs to be approved by the board and then approved by council. And I believe what council is asking is that we wait on taking any action at the board level until they've had more time to review it and discuss that with you. So the problem with doing this is that the proposals are only good through a certain period of time. So I think we want to make sure that this delay is consistent with the proposals that are out there. So right now, the proposals, at least one proposal is only good for 120 days. That would be January 28. So at this point in time, I would ask that the board table until its next board meeting. And we would like to then go, that would allow you to act at the next board meeting on those proposals if they're not changed. But our goal would be is to go back to those people and ask for extensions on those proposals so that they would be good through mid-February. If that's the direction that the board wants to go, that would be, I think, a fair assessment or whatever. So I guess I would answer, I mean, it's your motion to table. whatever conditions you want to place on it is up to you.
Dave, we don't have a resolution made and approved to table. So why don't we just agree that we're going to postpone review of this until then? We haven't approved, no one has made a resolution. The written resolution
Okay,
that is in our packet, no one has proposed doing that and it hasn't been seconded. So why don't we just agree that we're gonna review this
Okay,
again?
that would be an alternative. I'm just trying to place a timeline on taking it back up for consideration. And the only reason I'm asking you to do that is so that you can tell me how long to try. I mean, I can't just ask for an unlimited extension. So however you want to do it is fine with me. If you want to postpone it till a certain date, table it till a certain date, however you want to do that is fine with me. But I'm just asking that you tell me how long you want to push it out there before you want to bring this issue back up for consideration. That's all I'm saying.
Would it be, I don't think it would be unusual to ask for a 30-day extension from these, which would take it out to what, the 1st of March or thereabouts?
If that's what you'd like me to do, that's fine. I mean, again, I'm just trying to put,
Give city council. You heard Bob Manetza, he's not sure how long it's gonna take. It would just give them more time. If they say no, then we can reconsider.
I guess I'm open to take direction from you as to how long you want me to seek extensions. If it's 30 days, 15 days, 20 days, what does the board want me to do?
I think it's entirely up to the bidders as to.
They may or may not accept.
They
That's
may
all.
or may not accept that, but in reality, that building has really been there for 10 years unused. So however long it takes, it's really up to the bidders. If they're willing to extend it for 30 days, I'm good with that.
Jerry,
I'll make a motion that we extend it 30 days. Can you hear me? Evidently not.
Yeah, Jack, we can hear you.
We can,
I would like to make a motion, we extend it 30 days. Which gets you just about to March 1.
Okay.
I second the motion.
Okay, what we're not extending the proposals, we're asking them to extend the proposals. Okay, fine.
However you want to word it, just use the date that we.
That way we give the council a little more time to get the information they want.
Okay,
If we're asking the proposers to extend 30 days.
okay, okay, so you want to vote on that postponement? Or on that request to extend? No, it's not a table.
No.
All we're doing at this point in time is asking the proposers to extend their proposals by 30 days.
I'll call for the question.
We have a motion for 30 days.
I'm calling the question.
Okay, we have a motion, we have for 30 days for a second, and we have somebody that's called the question.
Read the motion, please.
Motion to request bidders to extend proposals by 30 days. Director Crum,
yes.
Director Keefe,
Yeah.
Director Nasser,
Yes.
Director Witherell,
Yes.
Chairperson Smant.
Yes,
Okay, I would like to say a few things about the extension, because there's some things that the board should be aware of that's occurring, all right? And we need to talk about this. First of all, in the packet is recommendations associated from our consultant. And I think it's important that those recommendations are forwarded for public consumption, all right? Because I think it is one of the things that we do want to get into the public comment is our consultant's review that he's provided to you for his recommendation to you. And I think it should also be provided to council, all right? If we're not going to forward an action, the least we can do is forward the recommendation that's made by a consultant. That's the first thing. Second thing is I'm very concerned about what happened this past week is there is been a single proposal that has asked to adjust their proposal. And my understanding is that they're willing to adjust their price and they're willing to adjust what they want to be done. Now, what we have had a lot of people in this process that have asked if they could submit late proposals. We told them, no, we are considering the proposals that were received on September 30th. Now, at some point in time, if the board wants to, and the board and city council want to open it back up again and allow people to change their bids and allow people, because they don't like any of these four bids, then we should do that in a consistent pattern that allows all of the people to propose and those that didn't propose an opportunity to submit new proposals, whatever, but we can't just haphazardly allow one person to change their proposal and other people not to, all right? That's not fair. It's not ethical in my mind, and it's not appropriate. So my understanding is that council wants to get additional public comment on these four proposals and whether or not maybe we want to open it back up and extend for other proposals. Those are all actions, but what we've got right now on the table, the board approved process is four proposals that were received on September 30th. All right, those are the four proposals that remain in consideration and we're not allowing changes to them. We're not allowing them to change their bids. We're not allowing any of that until we get direction from the board and the council on how they want to proceed. All right, so we're going to ask those parties to extend the proposals that we received on September 30th to a point in time where we can act, and then we will act consistently for all of those people. Does that seem fair to everyone? I mean, but I think, can everyone also see the problems with allowing people to adjust their bid midstream here? I mean, am I speaking out of order? Is that reasonable for everyone?
Can't do it. You can't allow them to.
As long as everybody's on the same page, apparently, there's been this kind of, I don't know how this happened, but we've actually had one of the parties completely change their proposal to a completely different proposal. So I'm not sure. What we're saying is that we're going to consider their proposal on September 30th. Now, if they want to pull that proposal, given, it was, I suppose they can do that, but changing the dollar value, was not accepted by the BLP. And, we're going to stay with those four proposals as they're written. As long as everyone's on the same page, that's the process that we're extending for another, 60 or 30 days. We're going to extend that review of those proposals. And then if the board and the council determine that those four proposals aren't adequate, that we want to allow all of them to change, whatever they want to do at that point in time, we'll agree to that at that point in time. But we are not accepting changes to those proposals at this time. Is that reasonable?
Yeah. Dave?
We can hear you, Jack.
Okay. My comment is that if we start changing proposals or accept new proposals, we've destroyed our process. We have to, my feeling is we stay with the proposals we have, we ask for the extension, and then we make a decision as to which one we want. But if we start changing things after the fact, all of the bids are known, and puts those who bid first at a disadvantage, because those that come in later know exactly what they have to meet or what they can do. I just think it would destroy our reputation for getting proposals if we start manipulating or monkeying around and allowing all these changes. So I'm in favor of taking the proposals we have, ask for the extension, and we'll review them when we get to roughly March 1st. That's it.
Thank you, Jack.
From a purchasing standpoint, it's the same reason that you can't accept somebody changing their bid after you ask for bids, because it gives the people who want to change an unfair advantage. They've seen the other bids. In this case, they've seen the other proposals, and that's why we can't do it, really.
And I think that you're all telling, I mean, this is what we've told. I mean, there's actually been other bidders as well that did not submit a bid because they just didn't have enough time to do it by September 30th. Now, if we want to, if we're uncomfortable at the end of this process that one of these bids is good or bad or whatever, I'm fine opening it up for everyone to resubmit, allowing these other parties. But I think just allowing one party to change, I think we're all in agreement that that's not allowed. So I'll proceed with that. And that's actually what Greg Holcomb has told these individuals, that we're not accepting anything. But apparently, regardless of that, there has been changes to proposals submitted to City Hall. And we have not accepted those. All right. The BLP has not accepted them. We aren't including them. They aren't included in your revised. We do have a revised, consideration packet that, and we can get that out just so everybody knows what was being considered for today. We can get that to you as well. All right.
Okay, let's move on to other business, please.
Okay, other business, just a few reports here. And this is just, a lot of these are just for your thoughts, considerations, discussion, if need be. As you know, Progressive A&E is looking at, and they're working diligently on a design for the facilities on Harbor Island that are being proposed. One of the things that has come up as part of this is the public, everyone else has said this is a very vocal site. It's on the waterfront. It could have substantial impacts on the surrounding community. I think we all recognize that. So one of the ways that I think that both Progressive AE, as long as it's done in the right fashion here, is to involve some people that either board members, city members, in that kind of, particularly the exterior look of the building, right? So the idea here would be Progressive A&E has been tasked with making a design to the building, all right? We're not talking about no building or a building. We're just saying that if we go forward and they are tasked with building it, to involve some people that are supportive of, we're not talking about not doing the building in this group, all right? This is just, if we go forward, we're trying to get some input into, does this particular facility blend in with the surrounding area? Does it make sense looking at traffic flows and other things that if we do build on this site, which is what Progressive A&E is tasked with doing, here's another group of people besides just us as the Board of Light and Power, which we've been somewhat criticized for, that can look at this building and say, yeah, if you're going to build there, this is the best, this is as good as it's gonna get. Or maybe we can make these improvements to the exterior of the building to make it look nicer. Because what we're hearing is, and we're trying to be responsive to the public, we're trying to say, okay, what we're hearing is this is a very vocal site, very visible site. We want to make sure that whatever goes there is consistent with the public, and we want to hear from you. So I talked to Jerry about this a couple days ago. If we want to involve this type of blue ribbon committee, whatever you want to call it, in this design process, now is the time to do it, because Progressive A&E is actually, if they get a month, two down the road, that's too late in this process to make adjustments. And it's kind of, at that point in time, it's asking if you like this or not. I think what we're asking here tonight is first of all, this doesn't have to be the board doesn't have to take this idea. Secondly, do you have some ideas of people, either board members or non-board members, and preferably this would bring in other people that could serve in this role that, might help in this regard. And then also be able to say at the end of the day that, yeah, we actually like this. I mean, if you're going to build, this is not if you're going to build, not build, are you going to look at all the interior, elements of the building and make decisions of what we need and what we don't need? That's not what this committee is doing. It's just primarily to look at the site plan, at the exterior of the building. Is there modifications that we can do to make it more palatable with the neighborhood? All right. And I think
Let's do this. Let's just ask each board member to email you. They'll have to process this a little bit, give them the opportunity to think about it and get back to you. That's the best way.
I mean, unless you just want to nix the whole idea, I think
I wouldn't nix the idea. I would just wait to see what kind of a response we get from the board.
perfect. These aren't action items. These are discussion points. So just trying to, okay. Community engagement process. We have been, as you know, we've hired a firm. I think we've gotten, and we've been fairly silent for the last 2 months, and we've gotten beat up pretty badly, let's face it. So what is happening is we are listening. We have heard what people are saying, and we're in the process of starting a response. All right. So part of that response is to tell you what we're going to do here, as we have established and we're about to launch a page. It is live. Okay. We are now live with a kind of microsite, and it's not on our site, but it's linked on our site for information regarding, this process that we've gone through. And we've also incorporated some of our strategic, as we go forward with our strategic plan, we're going to use this site to talk about potential changes in our 5-year strategic plan that may not be related to this site at all. All right. So we're trying to get public input, encourage public input, information sharing on this microsite that can be found on our webpage. And what is it? What is the URL?
GHBLP.org is to get
The microsite. Okay. We'll get you that. So. Okay, so this keep it on this site too as well. So this is the microsite that we have now created, grandhavenpower.org, to share information, to talk about, allow the public input. They can go on here, they can make their comments, they can write letters to the BLP, they can ask questions, they can do all that stuff that we can then respond to, and we can provide them an opportunity on this site. All right, so the site's there, it's well done, and we're going to be using it over the next 6 months to release information, to talk with people. There's an opportunity if the board wants to blog or make a statement on this, to come and make a statement, to respond in some fashion so that we can have the community quote dialogue that was wanting. I mean, so that's the first thing that we're doing, is releasing this site and starting to build upon it. But we think it's a really good opportunity. The second thing that we're doing is we are trying to put together 3 quote public forums in January. We're moving forward. These wouldn't be board meetings. They would be informational gatherings, probably via Zoom. The first one that we want to do is something to do with, I think bringing, Pat Bolin was here from MPPA last meeting. Larry, you missed that, but he was here. I think it would be good to bring him back. I know he was at the Grand Haven Energy Forums as well, but let him come back, maybe have 1 or 2 other municipal leaders in the state that use MPPA, just to talk about power supply planning, building this diversified portfolio, working with other municipalities, how that's done in a real low-level educational setting, so that the public can understand, first of all, what we're doing now and how we can change, modify that, what that process, how that process works. That's the first forum that we're talking about. The second forum that we would like to talk to the community about is the contamination issues on Harbor Island. I think we've talked about that as a board. We've directed our consultants to do certain things. I think we would like to have a second forum. Again, these aren't board meetings. Obviously, the board is very welcome and encouraged to attend, but these would be people that have been involved in this process, coming in and spending a dedicated amount of time to educate our public on what we've done and what we're proposing. That second one would probably be under Eric's lead, but Golder would be available. If we want to have some of the other people available, what they're doing. It's the third. No, that's another. I think it's more of the economics associated with particular planning endeavors. Again, we're putting that one together now, but basically there would be 3 public forums in January. The last element that we're talking about doing is some face-to-faces with our largest customers, with our with some of the township officials. We serve obviously outside the city as well as in the city. We've had a lot of communication with our government officials in the city, but we haven't talked very much with anybody in Grand Haven Township, Ferrisburg, Grand Haven, in Spring Lake Township, and Robinson Township. So idea would be is that we would divvy up these people, and between the staff and Jerry has volunteered to help us talk to some of these people and just first of all give them a very short presentation on where we've been, and then secondly ask for their input, ask for their guidance and their support. If they do support it, we'd like to hear that. If they don't support it, we'd like to understand the reasons why. So these one-on-one type meetings with influential, participants, large customers, township people, the forums would be geared more towards the residential population. But then we might also have just other people that and if you have anybody that you'd like to have us share this presentation with, we'd be happy to add that in as a process. But those would be kind of the 3 efforts that we're going down in the next month or so. I don't want anybody to be surprised by it, but can we put up the kind of guideline for the one-on-one? This is available for your use as well. I don't have to go through this all. We have copies of this for you, but this securing a sustainable energy future, this is that that kind of presentation that we would give to, parties as we see them working on what we've done, why we're doing it, that sort of thing. If you just want to scroll through it here, Eric, we can just kind of go over it. Talk a little bit about the fiscal responsibilities of our fiscal responsibilities, the sustainability goals that we're trying to meet in this, and then the reliability function. These are the three primary things that you've talked about as a board as being very important. The challenges that we're facing, obviously JB Sims is no longer viable. We have this desire for increased sustainability that we've built into the plan. We also have desire to retain local control and stability of rates. So these are all things that, we could briefly talk about with these people on one-on-ones. This is also going to be available for, it'll be available on this microsite for people to read themselves. We talk a bit about our solution is advanced distribution technology. What does that mean? Investing in a diverse power supply portfolio. I've heard a lot of people say, well, what the heck does that mean? That's just buzzwords. No, we do have a plan there. And then redeveloping the Harbor Island site. How does that fit into this broader solution? And then the next slide, what the community gets. Again, we talk about reliability and affordable, stable rates. There's been a lot of misinformation out there about what effects this might have on our rates. We can talk a bit about setting the record straight on what impact this would have on our rates. Sustainable power. We can feel good about why do we need to do this backup generation plant? What impact does that have on buying renewables? So some additional elements here that we can talk about, and you can read this for yourself. I don't have to go over this. And then back one slide, just the last segment there. And then enhance waterfront beauty and access. We understand this concern. We are obviously talking about building on a waterfront site and what we might be doing to make that more palatable to the community. Next slide. Community engagement. Again, we have the microsite, the educational materials that we're providing there. We have the 3 community meetings that we're going to be doing in January and February, and then this direct outreach meetings that we're talking about. Those are the 3 elements of this next month's plan. Next slide. And then we also want to let everyone know that our strategic planning session starts next month. That's going to be a 3-month process kicked off by a board meeting on the day before your next board meeting. I think, Larry, we've talked about this when you weren't here, but our strategic planning session starts next month. It'll be the 20th, and I think our board meeting is on the 21st, if my dates are wrong. But there's 2 dates. There will be 2 board meetings back to back next month. But we're going to go into this 5-year plan. It's a renewal of our 5-year previous plan, and we want to involve a diverse cross-section of the community in our leadership into that process as well. We think the plan for Harbor Island is an integral element of our 5-year plan, but it's not all of it. So the idea is to understand the 5-year plan and then understand how the facilities and equipment that we're installing on Harbor Island fit into that 5-year plan. So that's all part of it. We just want to make it known. We want to say that the public's opinions are valuable. We know that. So we're building a process exactly, I believe, what the board wanted us to do in that process. And that involves involving people in this process. And this is how we're trying to do it. So next slide. Is there questions and answers? So this would be that, short discussion that we have with these parties. That's the tool that we would use to do that. And then those were the kind of the 3 things. So I just wanted to, I know there's been some discussion about what this process is going to look like, how we're going to be engaging the public in the next 6 months. Some people think it's hogwash and we're not really going to do it. I think you're going to find that the information that's there on the website and that we're going to be presenting to people is entirely consistent with what we said over the last 2 years of this process. So I think, we want to get the information out, and hopefully correct a lot of the misinformation that's being spread around. So I think that's our obligation. And those are the tools that we're gonna do. Any questions on that?
I have a question.
Yes.
Can we, this micro website, do you have to go to the regular BLP website first? So you go to grandhavenpower.org, all one word, and that gets you to what we just saw?
Yep. Or it is linked on our website too, right? It's also, if you want to just go to our website, it will be linked and it'll look just like it's a, if you go to our website, hit learn more, it'll automatically go to that. So you can go to either get it to either direction. Our hope was to get this out a little bit earlier, but I actually think the timing is good. It allowed the Grand Haven Energy people to be out there, say whatever they want to say for the last 4 months. We weren't interfering with them or arguing with them at any point, but now we're going to put out our responses to it. So I think that's what they wanted, and I think we're doing it accordingly. So that's where we're headed. I think it is a little bit delayed from where we had hoped we would be, but I guess, we're doing it nonetheless, and I think that's what the board, directed us to do. So,
Next item.
next item is the, just thanks, I got 2 chairs. You can't. Business assessment and strategic plan. They are completing our business assessment. John and Todd had an opportunity to talk to them as part of the board governance section of that release of that thing. But what we'll have, the business assessment, that's the new term that they're using for organizational checkup. You remember 5 years ago, we did an organizational checkup. We're getting an update to that. That document will be done sometime in early January, and it will be forwarded to the board in advance of at least hopefully a week, maybe in 2 weeks in advance of your first strategic planning session. All right. So you'll have the business assessment, and then we will go, have time to digest it, read it, and then we'll go into our strategic planning session with the board, kick off. The goal is still to have Tim Blodgett, who did it last time, here in person. We're hopeful that we can do this in person in January. But if we need to do it via Zoom, we'll do it via Zoom. All right. So, but obviously Jack will be zoomed in from Arizona, but I think it's good that we're going to get there. But that first step is to complete that business assessment. It's being finalized. They've gotten all their data. So they spent 2 days talking to all of us, several months gathering a bunch of information on our organization, and you will be presented a quote independent assessment of the BLP's performance since the last business, the last organizational checkup. So I hope it will provide you a foundation to start our strategic planning session. So that's the same process that we used last time, if you remember, and I think it was effective. So we'll do it again. And you've already authorized the consultants and stuff to do this. So that was done several months ago. The last thing, it's not on the agenda, but I would just like to bring it up. The mayor, Jerry, Jack to a lesser extent, have been involved in discussions on Harbor Island's environmental cleanup. All right. We have employed an environmental and legal attorney, legal counsel to help us through that process. I think we're past the time where that counsel, legal counsel, should meet with the board and tell you as a board, and we would suggest a joint board council executive session to review with your legal counsel, the situation that you're in there, all right? What we're thinking is that meeting should happen sometime in January. I know your January schedule is filling up, but there's a lot of things happening. I'm sure you read the article in the paper last week, hopefully, about soliciting the assistance of our legislators in pushing this decision-making up the chain of command at EPA and Eagle, because we believe that we are going to need to negotiate a consent order to meet our obligations in certain regulatory areas. And we believe that your legal counsel should probably brief you on that, on the positions that we're taking, and get direction and talk about the strategies legal strategies that they're using in those submittals. So I'm just putting that in front of you so that you understand that we will be calling you in the next month to try to set that up. I think it's also important that our legal counsel that's working on this also have an update with our city attorney, which I also believe is necessary. So those discussions will be had, but I think it's important. We've talked about this publicly, but there's also a legal background to this all, that it's important that everyone realizes the liabilities, the legal liabilities that the city is confronting here. All right. Well, the remediation, whatever we do, is going to involve. These aren't fines. These are remedial activities, but we're talking about $8 million at probably a minimum. No, I don't think there'll be any kind of payment, but there will be an acceptance of what is an allowable strategy for us to implement. All right, and I think it's important that the legal people are involved in that, because EPA and Eagle also have their own legal counsel that will be involved in having these discussions and working out, because it all has to be done consistent with the rules and regulations that we have, right? So I think it's important. It's probably long overdue. I think Bob Manetza has been involved in it as mayor. I know Jerry has been involved in some of these discussions. I think Bob was saying, hey, I'm getting questions from council. I'm sure Jerry is potentially getting questions from the public. I think you guys, and quite frankly, Eric and I would feel a lot better if you guys were fully understanding all of what your legal obligations are in this regard, because we are actually the parties that can be held lawfully accountable for these activities that the city is involved in. And I would love to share that with the rest of the governance officials here, so that I have the comfort level of your backing in all of this. So I think it's appropriate to have these discussions. This is a allowable element for you to have a closed session discussion with your attorneys, so that you can ask them questions, you can get their opinions on this thing, so that we can. So, okay, does that, Eric, do you want to add anything to that?
Well, I do. It'll be a joint session, right?
Yes.
That's what we're asking for, yeah. Eric, do you want anything to add to that?
Can you hear me, Dave?
Yes.
So I think the one thing I would say, just to prepare the board when they talk to the legal counsel, the gentleman's name is Arthur Siegel. He's from Jaffe Rate, Hewer and Weiss. This gentleman helped write the state coal combustion residual rules. And so he's got a really in-depth knowledge, and he's worked on it as part of rule development. And so he's very knowledgeable in the federal rule, which is 40 CFR 257, but he's extremely knowledgeable in the state rules as well, having been one of the party members to help draft them. draft the rules. So he's been a lot of help. He definitely knows what he's doing. This is a complex site, and obviously our big concern is taking care of the ash is one thing, but impacting the former trash dump adds a layer of complexity that the rules really don't account for. So I think a closed session will be good. You guys can ask whatever questions you'd like. What would be really helpful though is if you have questions, prepare them ahead of time and email them to us so I can send it to Arthur. That way he can have a well thought out, well articulated response prepared for you. That's all I have, Dave.
Thank you. I'd just like to say, because I know we are getting beat up fairly well in the public right now, and there's an interpretation out there that we don't care, we don't care about the environment, that we aren't taking every precaution or whatever. I just want to say that, I mean, this is not my expertise. I have not been involved in it that greatly, but I believe Eric and his team there, along with Arthur and Golder, I've sat in on enough meetings where I can say, we've got a solid team of people, and any suggestion that these people don't have the best interests of the community in mind and that are trying to put together a community focused solution to our problems is completely out of bounds. And if we all as board leadership needs to be out there, first of all, saying, let us do our job, let these guys do their job. You're more than it's more than appropriate for you to go in, ask your questions, that sort of thing. But when these comments come up from the public that the board doesn't care, that the employees don't care, that we're not working to solve these problems in a prudent focus that isn't entirely appropriate, I think we as a board, and that's why we're having this meeting, because we need everybody, all hands on deck, supporting what we're doing, and particularly when we're asking for the help of our legislators. We need all the governing body here to be saying, you know what, we all want to find the best solution here. We all do. No one's not wanting to find the best solution. No one's not wanting to intentionally contaminate the ground. That's nonsense. We all want to solve the problem, and we're trying to do so in the best way we all know how, and everybody's intentions are pure. All right. And I think we all need to get there. If this discussion with legal counsel is your opportunity to get there. All right. And support what's going on. So I know you had an opportunity with Golder. We actually have people out there that are questioning Golder's professional integrity. These guys are solid, top drawer people that do this all over the country. They have no bias. They're completely independent. We've had people ask for where they invest their cash. I mean, this is nonsense, people. This is nonsense. We need to, first of all, if they're not good, then we should fire them and get somebody else. If they do meet our needs, we need to support them, and we need to 100% get behind these people. All right. And that's what this is for. All right. So with that, I don't have anything more.
Anything from the board? John, would you like to read the issues in regard to me personally?
No,
Okay.
not today.
Okay. At this time, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Did we lose? Okay. Did we lose everybody? Then we're going to, Well, then let's just, I'm going to adjourn. Yes,
need a
I'm going
support.
home.
I'll support it.
Thank you, John.
Okay.
Thought you weren't gonna take anything. John.
All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
All right.
We are adjourned. Have a happy holiday. Renee, have a very safe trip.